All right. This is the class exercises from section 4.1, and I'm going to go over these with you. Keep in mind that you should be working along with me, not just copying answers. If you don't understand what I'm saying, rewind it, ask questions, do whatever you need to do. Okay, example 1, it says given 3 statements below, identify which represents an exponential function. The cost of living allowance for state employees increases salaries by 3.1% each year. You've got a rate of increase, not an exact amount, a rate. So A works. State employees can expect a $300 raise each year they work for the state. It's just blanket $300. That's not a rate. The person that's making minimum wage is going to get a $300 raise, just like the CEO maybe would be getting, or the head of the governor's getting $300. So it doesn't matter who you are or what you were making. And C, tuition costs have increased by 2.8 each year for the last 3 years. Well, it's a rate. If it's a rate, it's an exponential. So A and C are the correct answers. Example 2, looking at these two equations that represent the balance in 2 different savings accounts, which account is growing faster and which account will have a higher balance after 3 years? The amount at T, A of T, $1,000 is invested. The rate is 5%. In B, the amount invested is $900, but the rate is 0.075 or 7.5%. So B of T is growing faster because its rate is higher. But when you evaluate these, actually plug them in and see the amounts, you can see that after 3 years, A of T still has more than B of T does. You started out with more. It takes a while when you start out with less for it to catch up with what you started out with. If it continued on, eventually B would surpass A because the rate is larger. Example 3 is talking about a population decreasing at 3% each year, and it says to find the population in 30 years. Remember from the PowerPoints, this is what I've picked up. You need to identify your variables in here. Your A, what you started with, was 1,000. Your rate is 3%, 0.03, and it's 30 years. It says decreasing. Be careful. First time I worked it, I didn't pay any attention. I'm very guilty of that. I worked it as increasing, so I had to go back and make my corrections. So 1 minus 0.03 raised to the 30. So we end up putting that in our calculator, and we see that we have decreased substantially over 30 years to 401 after 30 years. People. So I would leave it as 401. I wouldn't. It's a population, so I wouldn't carry any decimals with something like that. Example 4. It says, given the 2 points, 1, 3, and 2, 4.5, find the equation and the exponential function that passes through these 2 points. Okay, we're going to use f of x equals ab to the x. Use the first point. This is x, this is f of x. Plug it in. So we get 3 is equal to a b to the first. Well, if we divide both sides by b, 3 is divided by b, but I like it expressed as a equals 3 over b. Now, replace a with 3 over b. See, we've replaced a with 3 over b. B's exponent right here is still x. You can't just cancel out the b's because the exponent isn't just 1. Now we use the second point. F of x is 4.5 and the x is 2. Right here is 2. So I multiplied these so you could kind of see them. Got b squared on the top and b on the bottom. If you subtract the exponents, you end up with just b, or one of the b's cancels. and then we divide by 3, so we would get 4.5 over 3. I don't like it written. I like the variable to the left. We divide it out, and we get 1.5. Okay, now we want to replace a and b in our functions. After you find b, you're going to need to go and plug in and find a. Well, remember that a was 3 over b, so we plug in the 1.5 for b, and you work that out, and a becomes 2. So now you've got the complete function. You've got a and b, f of x equals 2 times 1.5 raised to the x. Okay, example 5. In example 5, what do we need here? We've got a CD, and you've got your certificate of deposit, the type of savings, and so forth offered by the banks. Since you're dealing with money, you want to go into this compound interest formula that's right here. This is what you're going to use. You identify it. A is equal to 1,000. Your rate was 1.2%, so that's 0.012. It said quarterly, that's 4, and the time is 2, because it said 24 months, which is 2 years. So you sub in, then you go to your calculator, and you find that it is 1,024.25. And that's just your answer. That's what it is. Example 6 just says interpret the following. S of t equals 20 e to the 0.12 t, where S of t represents the growth of a substance in grams and the time is measured in days. Okay, well, this is exponential growth because of the E is the base, so it's growing continuously with E as a base. The initial substance had a weight of 20, and it's growing continuously because of the E at the rate of 12% per day. That's what that is all about. I hope this all makes sense.